Shout out to Guy. What up, Guy? Guy's so. I love watching the real bodybuilding podcast because he'll come on like in his like BMW or like in his truck and he's just like getting out of the gym, so he's all like huffing and puffing. He's like, "Oh, what's up, guys? What's up, guys?" And Fuad's, he's always just like, "Guy, like, what the f are you doing? Like, why don't you just call once you get home?" He was like, drive safe, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
he actually got a whole bunch of crap thrown at him when that video went viral of him yelling at the people that were like 10 feet away from him at a commercial gym.
Yeah, I think
I think there was a lot of blowback against him.
He like kind of got canceled, I think, which is pretty messed up.
Well, I mean, honestly though, like if it's not your gym, it's not your like space. I think, just rule of thumb, like, hey, like no matter who you are, you can't really tell anybody unless you're like the owner.
Oh, sorry, Guy, you're absolutely in the wrong. But like in this token, like what I understand what he did, he ended up apologizing, like, oh, it was an overreaction, yada yada. Yeah. Because like he's in the moment. He was like about to do his top set, yada yada. Like you put a lot of thinking, a lot of effort into it. Was like an overreaction? Yeah. Was it an appropriate response? Yeah. But like we mess up. We're fallible beings. And my understanding is the guy, like one of the guys that he yelled at, like ended up like coming into his live chat room or whatever, and they like just kind of like squashed it. He's like, oh, and the guy was like, yeah, sorry for like being all up in your business, yada yada, and like they were cool with each other. So, I mean, that's like when you have a misunderstanding, like that's what you should do. You should, like our employer says, like deal with conflict head on, like fix it, and then move on.
And stop being a little.
Yes.
But yeah, so let's throw it back old school. I'm Antoine Coletta, and that is
Roman Long making some.
You know what? I was actually thinking about this before we started. I was like, man, remember we used to do like little intros like I'm Antoine and this is, and I'd point to you and say this is Roman, and then we haven't done that in a while, so I wanted to do it real quick. Episode 91, coming at you live with a different topic. Roman and I just talked before this. We got a lot of good things coming for the podcast. Hopefully by this year, we'll start a little bit something different. I know we keep saying that, but obviously people will have lives, and it's hard to get on track with something until it's fully there. So we're trying to get something for you guys. Episode 91. I don't know. How about we'll switch it up this time, Roman, and tell me if you're not okay with this. We're going to go straight into the episode instead of making the people wait for like 15 minutes before we start talking about the subject. Is that cool, buddy?
That's good.
Yeah, so episode 91, I think we probably did an episode before, but I wanted to kind of do a little bit more about like some of the insight I've learned personally and also like what to share. But we wanted to do another episode on sleep. Again, obviously Roman and I think this is important. As we mentioned previously, like, all these little areas of communications of topics, they are going to prepare you to become better at your fitness goal, if you're an athlete, your athlete goals, maybe even your personal life goals, your work goals. Fitness and health pretty much revolves around all those like four macro topics. And Roman and I try to like preach things that we think that's like useful information to you guys. And obviously some of this stuff has, some communications where it's like, you don't need to be 100% when it comes to like some of these things. Obviously these are recommendations / like information that we hear and learn and read about all the time. But yeah, I just wanted to go over like sleep. I don't know if you have any, Roman, do you want to start off with any topics at hand? Do you want me to kind of start it and then you kind of get into it?
Yeah, I'm going to let you lead this one, buddy. I'm not gonna lie to listeners. I'm woefully unprepared for this one. I chime in when necessary, but I was gonna review the podcast that we talked about. No time. I have not had any time to do it. Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay, and I think, and that's fine because like I had like a lot of ideas that we both heard anyways, and I'll give you kind of the topics. What I kind of want to talk about when it comes to sleep is like sleep in general, like recommendations, alcohol and sleep, THC and sleep, caffeine and sleep, and then also what else? Also, maybe last topic, if we could get to it, is like what usually happens when it comes to like, if you have a bad night of sleep, or if you sleep in, or if you don't like, go to sleep too, close into the night. But some of those are obviously reflective towards like your recovery. We've mentioned before with sleep, and like I wanted to talk about like the sleep goal overall, but most of the stuff too, guys, if you guys want to go a little bit further, what's his name, Matt Walker. If you guys look up Matt Walker, he is a scientist and neurologist, neuroscience professor of. He's a scientist and professor at UC Berkeley, University of California, Berkeley, and he was recently on like the Huberman podcast, and he's definitely one of the people that are pretty well known when it comes to talk about sleep. I think he actually has books and ebooks. So if you're ever interested in more on learning from like an actual scientist and professor, check out, I think his middle name is Paul. So Matthew Paul Walker of UC Berkeley. You could probably find it. Or if you want to do like Matt Walker sleep books, like check him out. But it was interesting to hear like some of the sides of what he talked about. And then kind of like Roman, if you want to share like some of the information or some of the times you battle with it. But like what I've learned personally is, obviously sleep is good, right? We all think sleep, we should all be sleeping, 6 to 8 hours, I'd say, was general recommendation. And also too, to try to do it, towards the nighttime. Obviously, if you're a night shift worker, like that's changes. And I think we talked about that in the other podcast. So I wanted to switch that area of talking for just a moment. But what I understand and hear about lately is caffeine. I wanted to talk about that. I mentioned that was like one of the first topics is besides the 6 to 8 hours of sleep you get every day, the caffeine intake. Matt was talking about how, a lot of the stuff when it comes to sleep, whatever your sleep time is. So if you go to bed from like, let's say Roman's probably on the earlier spectrum of like 9 p.m. I'm on like the 10:30, 11 p.m. But caffeine and sleep pretty much, it'll probably lead into alcohol and like THC, aka marijuana. But a lot of the stuff, even if you have like one or if you have some before sleep, it's going to overall mess up REM sleep. REM sleep is that rapid eye movement. And I think it's towards like what the middle sleep cycle, Roman, or the end.
I think so. I think REM is usually like in 90-minute cycles.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So during REM sleep, that's pretty much where you're recovering the most. You're getting all like the good juices back in your life. You're getting everything, you're recouping for the next day. So what pretty much preaching like on the Gainz podcast, and we probably mentioned it before, but like caffeine is like one of the biggest things what we see that happens the most when it comes to during the week. On the weekends, I think people typically tend to drink alcohol and like, dabble in THC during the weekend. But typically caffeine, and I see this all the time, and Roman probably sees it all the time because him and I usually go to the gym after work. So typically what you'll see at the gym is some people, they're drinking a Red Bull, they're drinking a Monster, they're drinking a shaker cup that has like half-filled water, but it's like pink or green. Typically, those probably aren't amino acids most of the time. I'd say most of the time it's more pre-workout than amino acids. It could be amino acids. I could be wrong, but typically in my spectrum, it's probably pre-workout. I'm only almost guaranteed or in assuming, but typically if your work shift is done at like 3 to 5 p.m., you go to the gym and you wolf that down either before the gym or during the gym, and you're just like, wow, like, and then you get a good workout in, and then you go to sleep at like what, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, right? And so you could go to, get ready for work the next day. You could sleep or whatever you have to do for the next day, whatever your job is. But see, the thing is, a lot of the times, if you're intaking so close to your sleep time, and they say about like 6 to 7 hours before that sleep time, you're actually interrupting that REM sleep. Not only it could hurt like your sleep cycle itself, but it actually interrupts like that REM sleep itself. And also too, with like the THC and alcohol side, caffeine at a sense of like, it could digest like 6 to 7 hours or could take that long. With different body types and genetics, obviously it could be a variable. It could be less time, more time, depending on how caffeine sensitive you are. But so like, that's like the one recommendation. Also too, with like the caffeine side, like even me, like I know most of the time I'm waiting for Sam to get off work because she works a little bit later than me to go to the gym. So pretty much what I've been doing lately, or as I get older, I've been honestly not even doing caffeine or even caffeine before the gym, because of the fact that like I know that this information could affect me, and I don't want to like interrupt any like recovery / sleep time. So I'm going to stop there in the caffeine portion. Roma, do you want to add anything to that, or say anything else on that portion?
Yeah. So I think it's important to distinguish digestion as opposed to like the half-life of the of like the drug or like caffeine as ergogenic aid. So we take caffeine because it's demonstrated over and over and over again to have positive benefits. If I have an extra cup of coffee, I had that silly post a couple of weekends back, I'm going to hit a PR. And behind that is it's able to light up certain neural pathways. It's able to make your central nervous system a little bit more alert, a little bit more like, okay, let's fire these muscles, maybe like with like higher motor unit recruitment, etc. So possibly like several different mechanisms there. But it's not digestion within 6 to 7 hours. It's actually like a half-life. So what that essentially means is that caffeine it probably enters your bloodstream, I would guess, between like 30 to 90 minutes after ingestion. So it does that via like multiple different areas of the digestive tract. I believe it usually starts at like the duodenum, and at that point it's gonna start to titrate into your blood. And caffeine is actually able to pass through the blood-brain barrier. That's where it is a psychoactive substance. It's able to make people feel more alert, make people feel potentially like more goal-oriented, feel maybe like more positive, like towards their day, or like a more positive outlook. So what caffeine is doing is it's floating around in the brain, and it's going into these adenosine receptors, which typically throughout the day, you'll have these adenosine receptors all throughout your brain, which are going to be accepting adenosine molecules. And what happens when you get, essentially you have a cascade of adenosine molecules that have attached to adenosine receptors, that's when you start to get that that sleepy time, or that sleepy feeling. So one of the things that we may have time to talk about, we may not, is light, and how Dr. Huberman talks about how light can sort of like start that like quote unquote circadian rhythm. So what happens at about the 5 to 6 to 7 hour mark, caffeine is going to lose its efficacy or its ability to sit within those receptors, and it's going to break off. And or another thing that will happen is various like other parts of your neurophysiology are going to create other receptors to accept other adenosine molecules. So that's another thing that's happening. But let's say you take that pre-workout at 5, like Antoine said, right after work, so you can get that awesome workout. Let's say it's a 300 milligram hit. That's like a pretty common pre-workout, and that's a lot of caffeine, which may be too much for some individuals to get a ergogenic or some sort of like aid in the. You aren't going to be looking at a half-life of that 300 milligrams until about maybe 11 p.m. So you're still going to have 150 milligrams, which is still an efficacious dose to be able to cause psychoactive properties. So to still like cause you to be alert and whatnot. And you may feel like somewhat drowsy, somewhat sleepy, but as Antoine mentioned, that could negatively affect certain sleep cycles because you still have that much caffeine still left in your body. Let's fast forward another 6 hours, 5 a.m. At that 300 milligram dose from the day before, you still might be looking at 75 milligrams, which are still like active in your body, in your brain, like still potentially causing like alertness, still blocking some of those adenosine receptors. So we're talking, you still have a slightly efficacious dose about 12 hours post consumption of that pre-workout. So that's why what Antoine said is so crucial, and that's why like the recommendation has been for so long, like 2 p.m., 2 p.m., 2 p.m., 2 p.m. Like granted, like people that go to bed 8, 9, but maybe even I think Matt Walker said like even sooner, like 10 or noon might be the latest you'd want to consume it, unless you get to bed like past like 10, and like maybe noon if you get to bed at like 10 or 11, but maybe 10 a.m. is like the latest you should consume your caffeine, or start to like titrate it down like pretty considerably if you're going to bed like before 10 a.m. for example.
Yeah, and obviously with caffeine of its own could be like a whole disruption when it comes to like the recovery and sleep cycles, like Roman was saying, and definitely you want to be cautious about that. Like I was saying earlier, with Roman and I being in the gym for so long, we've been there, done that type deal. So like there's probably been times where Roman and I have actually probably hit a scoop of pre-workout at 8 or 9 p.m. and hit a lift. I know Roman doesn't do that now, but I'm saying like, we've done that back in the day. But see, the thing is like, obviously like when you're a kid, you're playing video games, you're going to sleep at like 1 or 2 a.m. You wake up at like 10 or 11 a.m. and it's a whole different ball game. But as you get older, you get more responsibility, you more have like a set schedule. Then, obviously all of us and any of us can, take that suggestion and make sure we run with it, because a lot of the times is, people always think like they need pre-workout, they need coffee before the gym. And I mean, personally, I've hit like some of my biggest lifts without it. Like, I mean, the other day, I think I had, actually took pre-workout at like I think it was yesterday. Yeah. Before legs. I took pre-workout at like 1 or 2 p.m. And it's one of the pre-workouts that doesn't have beta alanine. So it's obviously some of the stimulants were probably meant to be digested a little bit sooner to work out, but I didn't work out till 5:15, 5:20. And it's because the fact that like I know that if I do it so late, it could affect my sleep when I need that every night. So wanted to, since we have about 12 or 11 minutes right now, or a little bit more, whatever. So because the next topic is kind of similar to caffeine, but another interesting thing that I didn't realize is too, actually alcohol and THC can have pretty much the same effect when it comes to like the time frame when it comes to like caffeine. With alcohol and THC though, I'm not going to speak too much on the THC scene, because the fact that, it could be illegal in certain states and it's legal in other states. So that's kind of like, I won't talk too much about it, but like alcohol, what I also learned is even if you have like one drink or two, we're talking like 6 or 7 hours before like your actual bedtime that you typically go to bed every day. it can affect your sleep cycle too as well. And I think I could be wrong, but Brian Shaw was a big proponent of this. He when he first started on Strongman, and he wasn't as big, obviously as he is now. Brian Shaw's on everything, but he personally, he'd be the person that would drink like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. He would, obviously he's a bigger guy than Roman and I. If Roman and I actually, if Roman got on my shoulders, we might stack up to a Brian Shaw, but he's just a big guy. So, but like he mentioned this, and Andrew Huberman and Matt Walker mentioned this, but like he, being like a professional strongman, he would see the adverse effects on the next couple of training days because of the fact that he had the couple of drinks on the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So same thing with like caffeine, with like THC and alcohol. That one drink at dinner could hurt like your sleep cycle. Like I mentioned earlier, with your recovery, your rest, you're feeling awake and alert. If you have the one drink, even if you have the one drink, it could technically hurt, your next day. So I wanted to bring that up. And also too is, I wanted to mention too about like THC. I know way too many people that say this, but, and this is not a medical, like, clarification from them saying it. And I'm not going to name any names, but there's a lot of people out there that say, oh, I need to hit my dab pen before bed. Oh, I need to smoke a joint, smoke a blunt before bed. That actually, and people are like, man, I dream vividly. But Matt Walker talks strongly about the studies that, like I said, alcohol and THC have a strong effect on doing the opposite for you when it comes to like REM sleep. So when you think you had like when you wake up, sometimes what he mentioned is like, especially on THC, you wake up the next day, you feel like you woke up and like, you just feel so heavy because like you just like slept so hard, but technically you really kind of like hurt yourself. And now you're probably going to feel groggy the next day. You're going to feel not alert. You're going to be slow moving. So also too, for the three topics we just talked about, caffeine, alcohol, THC, obviously in a perfect world, those three things are always going to be in life. And what Roman and I probably want to preach to you too as well. Like me, I'm a Saturday occasional drinker. So I drink pretty much like every Saturday, and I'm not afraid to admit it. I know Roman doesn't drink too often, and that's totally fine. And that's okay. It's not hurting him. It's not hurting me. It's not hurting the world. But typically, like, we're not in a perfect world. Like if you do enjoy like drinking, smoking, or caffeine, like, maybe doing it once a week is not fine. But if you keep doing it over and over each day, especially like you people out there that like, I need a glass of whiskey before bed, it helps me become sleepy. I mean, it helps you become sleepy, but you're not getting like that good recovery sleep. So I know this, and yes, it probably hurts like my Sunday training. I don't train on Mondays, but I know for a fact like I know that like Sundays are like I don't do anything special. I don't do anything like heavy. So like I know for a fact like I'm usually drinking on a Saturday. So it's not going to hurt you. We want to preach that, like, obviously live your life. Like you're going to want to do that stuff anyways. You want to enjoy life. You want to enjoy friends, family, then so be it. But we want to preach like over a long term. If you keep getting those habits of doing it every single day, or 3 days out of the week or 4 days, that's a lot of reasons why people have either trouble with sleeping, have trouble recovering, have trouble with like relationships. Because another thing is too, like you're going to be irritable, you're going to be groggy, you're going to be not alert, you're going to be tired. So I wanted to stop there. And I think do you want to add anything before like the last topic with like when it comes to like if you have a bad night of sleep?
Yeah, I'd just say that was all good stuff, buddy. Thanks for sharing that. As Antoine said, we kind of always come back to this adage, but like everything in moderation is probably key, right? If you do enjoy drinking on a Saturday, if that's what you enjoy, like we just want to bring like greater heightened awareness to these types of topics and these types of like potentially like healthy behaviors. And then really it's up to you. You're accountable to yourself. So if, like Antoine said, you're willing to accept the consequences that maybe you'll be a little groggy Sunday, maybe you'll be like a little irritable, maybe your workout won't be that great, but like you had a great time out on Saturday. Like if you're cool with that, then like great. That's, like you're living your best life.
I might change it. I might have to change it to Sundays because football's on now. I was telling Sam that. I was like, because the Vikings are giving me such a hard time, I might have to change it to Sundays.
Oh yeah, buddy. But yeah, I mean, like, yeah, it's your life, so live it the best way, the way that you want to live it. But also, if you learn these kind of like maybe inconvenient facts about like sleep and like the interruptions that like potentially alcohol, THC, caffeine can cause, and you continue to like go down the cycle, and you're saying like, I don't know, I'm not getting good sleep. Well, remember, you have to look back at your habits. Like, what are you doing? Are you like creating these good habits, like, getting like early sunlight into your eyes? Are you consuming certain beverages? Are you over reliant on taking a substance like melatonin, like whatever it is? Yeah. That thinking dry cough. It's like allergies too from the pup sitting this weekend. I'm fine, Gainz podcasters, listeners. But yeah, if you're finding that like you are running into those issues, then it's important to kind of like examine what you've been doing, and then maybe like take something out, or like if it means like adding something in, like a nap, or like increasing your bedtime, whatever. I think there's one other note that I wanted to mention. I may have mentioned this on the other sleep podcast, but I think it definitely is worth mentioning again. I used to subscribe to this hypothesis that NASA put out back like when I was in college, because I had read like once about it. Woo! Like I knew everything about sleep at that point. And what they found was that they believe that the optimal lifespan recommended a sleep schedule of 6.5 to 7.5 hours per night. And if you were like averaging that, then you were sufficient. I found that like as I talked to more and more people, learned more and more about this, and then also learn more and more about myself, I think that most people actually need to be in the 8+, not even at the 8, but like the 8+ hours of sleep a night. So that doesn't just mean like, because I'll say like, oh, let's say in bed by 9, up by 5, like I might still be tired if I do that. So that might be like my own personal bias creeping in, but I know like 6.5 hours is like woefully inadequate for me. Like I'll be like groggy throughout the day. So yeah, that was definitely something that like I used to think one thing, and now I think a different thing. So it's okay to allow your thoughts and your beliefs to evolve over time.
Yeah, and also too, there's two things I don't think we brought up on the last one too, because I know like that's why I didn't really talk about it today, Roman, and you brought it up a couple times, like melatonin. What I realized and read up on also too is like the tablets. I don't know if they come in anything else. Like I know like they make kids one, which we should know like that's pretty bad. Like your kids shouldn't be taking that. We talked about it last time. But what I've read too is there's actually a bunch. This is one of the two things I was saying, but they did a bunch of like research in like breaking down like different supplements of melatonin, and like we're talking like there was like and it might be more or less, but they're saying like it might be overdose 200% or 200% underdose. So you're looking at like and we're talking, I think the effective dosage is less than 1 gram. So like some people take like a 5 gram one, or is it no, maybe it's 1 milligram and not 5 gram. I don't know. Roman?
I don't remember.
But either way, so if it's milligrams or grams, like they're talking like if it's 200%, like if it's 5 milligrams, we're talking like, like way over, like we're talking like almost like it's obviously double of it. And then if it's under, then, obviously that's fine. But like, it's like crazy that I never even knew that. Like, obviously I know supplements are never like 100% FDA approved. We know, like, yeah, like obviously a lot of whey proteins back in the day got hit because they were amino acid loading the protein instead of actual putting whey concentrate, which has, obviously those are two different types of like proteins, but they got away with it because the additives. But I didn't know that, and I know a lot of people use melatonin, and we said on the last time probably shouldn't do it, but that's crazy because like now you're even like messing yourself up even more when you're trying to get a good night's sleep. And the second thing is too, they also talk about, like, say if you went to bed late, like say, say if you go to a sports game on a month, like say football's around. Say if you went to a game on Monday Night Football and you didn't get home till 11 o'clock. You didn't go to bed till 11:30, 12. And typically, like for me, like my bedtime's 10:30. So that's like an hour and a half before, or hour and a half after my bedtime. So the next day, yeah, I might be a little tired, but what I also learned is when like a bad night of sleep happens, because you mentioned it earlier, but they suggest to do nothing actually. So they suggest, like Matt Walker was talking about, like the next night, just go to bed at your regular time. He said that most of the time you shouldn't go to bed earlier. Like some people say my bedtime is at 10:30. That Tuesday night I go to bed at 9 or 9:30. That's not doing anything good for me. So, and this might be a good suggestion. It's like, so if you have a long night on like Saturday or Friday night, or like another good example is Saturday night. If you have a long night Saturday night, on Sunday you shouldn't sleep all the way in, because you also might ruin the chances of you falling asleep Sunday night on your regular time to wake up Monday. So that's where you see a lot of people Monday morning, they're really exhausted, they're really tired, because the fact that they slept in so late on Sunday, they couldn't go to bed on their regular time, and it kind of ruins their Monday. So that was like the last thing is, like, I always thought, like, if you had a bad night to sleep, like, go to bed a little bit earlier, but it makes sense because, like, you don't want to ruin that overall cycle of sleep. So that was the last two things I wanted to talk about, Roman.
That's awesome, buddy. I love it.
I was just like, maybe people do know this, but like, it's just like the simple things you learn. You're like, oh crap, like that's interesting. So, but awesome, guys. Well, we're gonna end it there. Let us know what you want to talk about next. Message us on Instagram, comment on the YouTube channels. Make sure to follow Roman on YouTube so he can get that name changed on his link. We're on all audio and video platforms. Please follow, like, comment, subscribe. Give us a review on Apple Podcasts, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.